Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Forum. This Saturday at Pimlico, all eyes are going to be on race number 13, the Grade 1 Preakness at 1 mile and 3/16 on the dirt. And I have to admit, this is my favorite race. I love going to the Preakness. I think it's a great event, a lot of fun to be had. We'll take a look at this year's edition and this year's field. 8 have been entered. The Kentucky Derby winner, Mage, 8-5 on the morning line. He's actually the only horse that's going to enter this race fresh off the Derby. So a lot of these horses have had extra time off. National Treasure shipping in from the West Coast. Chase the Chaos, a long shot in here, who raced very well in the El Camino Real Derby. Red Route 1 performed 2 hard closers in this race. Blazing Sevens, trained by Chad Brown, a horse that they clearly have had really high expectations for, and they're going to put him in the Preakness and hopefully he's poised to run a big race. And then the number 8, First Mission, this one trained by Brad Cox, who has been very impressive throughout his career. Very limited number of starts, just 3 under his belt, 2 of which have been wins. So that's the overview of the field of 8. But let's dive right into it, starting with the number 1, National Treasure. This one trained by Bob Baffert. Blinkers are going to go on. He's raced with blinkers in the past. He actually raced with them on debut at Del Mar and then 2 starts later in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. A very consistent type of horse, I would say. Maybe he disappointed last time out. It was his first start in 3 months. He finished 4th in that spot in the field of 8 in the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby, which was won by Practical Move. But looking at him, he does have some early speed. He draws to the inside, and here John Velasquez, very familiar with this horse, and he's been working very well at Santa Anita. He's got back-to-back bullet drills. To me, I think he's a big part of the pace scenario in here, especially with the inside draw, 4-1 on the morning line. The number 2, Chase the Chaos, I mentioned, looking at the field, he's 50-1. I don't know if he should be 50-1 in this field. You look at his races, though, his best races so far in his career, they've been at Golden Gate Fields. He was the winner of this year's edition of the El Camino Real Derby. I thought it was a pretty impressive stretch run. He had to navigate and kind of carve out a trip in the stretch, but once he got clear, to me, it looked like he had plenty of horse left. Look at his race in the San Felipe. He just was never involved. He was always back at the pack and never really made a light move. And he disappointed in his last. And just hearing some interviews with Ed Mosier Jr., they thought he should have ran better in those races, but he has been training well. He looks the part, and he's going to be a big price if you're looking for one in this year's edition of the Preakness. The number 3, Mage, this year's Kentucky Derby winner. What a beautiful performance. Just, going back to the Derby and looking what he was able to do. He got 105 fire speed figure, but to see him kind of unleash his, rally in the stretch and to win by a length, very impressive. Prior to that, I thought he looked tremendous in the Grade 1 Florida Derby at Gulfstream Park. Yes, Forte gets the job done, but Mage is only in his 3rd career start. He actually had the lead briefly, and for him, the big thing was he didn't break out of the gate chart. Prior to that, his 2 efforts, he was certainly involved earlier than he was in the Florida Derby, and he still was able to, really show up in a big way and then put it all together going 1.25 miles last time out at Churchill Downs. Javier Castellano, I've been aboard him twice now. I thought a masterful ride in that most recent outing, and we'll see what he shows. I mean, he's the only horse coming in here with that start in the Kentucky Derby. He was very impressive, and he seems to be training quite well at Pimlico. The number 4, Coffee with Chris. This horse was 5th last time out in the Federico Tessio, was part of the early pace scenario and did tire in there. First time, though, going 1 mile and 1/8. Prior to that, was a pretty good 2nd in the private terms, was the winner of the Miracle Wood. You see him, he's a local horse, but he's kind of stamped his own. He has held his own. He actually does have a win at Pimlico as well, which I don't think is a bad thing. And just looking at him, yes, he's going to be a price in here, but sometimes just being based in that area gives you a little bit of advantage. And I do think in terms of the pace, he could be a horse that is forwardly placed in here. I do think National Treasure on the inside is probably quicker than him, but this horse has been, consistently forwardly placed in all of his starts. Number 5 at Red Route 1. This one out of the Steve Asmussen barn. We're going to take a look at his most recent win in the Bathhouse Row at Oaklawn Park. Now, this is a horse that just lets everyone else get in front of him, and he tries to pick up the pieces late, and he's going to be able to do so. He's the number 4 here in the outside in those famous Windchill Thoroughbred Silks. And these other horses are still trying to kind of grind away on the front end, but he is determined here in the stretch. He gets that outside clearance throughout the stretch and is able to get up just in time, going 1 mile and 1/8. Certainly the added distance should not hurt his chances, but I just wonder, in terms of the pace scenario, how hot is the pace actually going to be? For him, the hotter, the better. He did get the perfect setup in his most recent outing, Arkansas Derby. He had some troubles. I don't think he had the best of breaks once again, but he just didn't have that same punch. But they were able to kind of put it all together last time out. I will note in that Bathhouse Row, he was able to race with Lasix. He's not going to be able to race with them in the Preakness, but he's been fine in prior starts. I don't want to read into that too much when you go back to the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. Joel Rosario was aboard him for his most recent win and sticks with him in here. Another hard closer is the number 6, Perform. This one out of the Shug McGahee barn. We're going to look at that race in the Federico Tessio. And I think looking at these replays that we are going to go through for the Preakness, this is the most impressive. So at this point, you're trying to figure out where is Perform. You can see he's the number 7. He is covered in dirt because he is that sort of late closing horse. He ran into traffic there with those 2 runners. He's trying to maybe swing to the outside. There's not room, so he has to go to the inside. The 9's coming over. I mean, just unfortunate circumstances here in the race. It looks like the 5 is clearing here. Perform, goes to the rail, now swings back out and gets up by a head. I mean, that takes a lot of courage from a horse and a lot of thought, thinking out, I guess, from the jockey. And Fergal Lynch was able to navigate that trip. Very hard to do. Gets up in time, and that win earned him a spot in the Preakness. So to see him break his maiden and then come back like that, this horse to me has a lot of courage, but another one, just like Red Route 1, is going to need that pace setup. The number 7, Blazing Sevens, trained by Chad Brown, was 3rd last out in that Grade 1 Bluegrass behind Tapit Trison, Verifying, who'd go on to race in the Kentucky Derby. He stepped up. I mean, I thought in the Fountain of Youth, he took some respect in there. He didn't show too much. Got bumped around a little bit in the race, but he'd been kind of flat in that effort. It was just his first start back, so maybe he needed this race. His connections sent him to the Bluegrass to hopefully maybe pick up some points there. And it seems like Chad Brown's been very high on this horse and just maybe he hasn't reached his full potential yet. So they're going to put him in the Preakness. I think mile 3/16 should suit him well. And I think he's got the ability to pass horses, which isn't going to be a bad thing. I think in terms of some of the other horses that we talked about, he should be certainly a little bit closer than Red Route 1 and Perform, which could be to his advantage in the end. And rounding out the field, the number 8, First Mission. This one out of the Brad Cox barn. He's been very impressive. He was 2nd on debut going 6 furlongs. He stretched right out to a mile and a 16th. He was much the best. I mean, he was, open lengths clear of the field. We'll take a look at his most recent performance. So he goes in the maiden spot weight, then he goes to the Grade 3 Lexington. We showed this replay in one of our other stakes previews because the big 2 in here in the end, the horses that are duking out are First Mission and Arabian Lion. Arabian Lion's to the outside right now, but First Mission is tenacious in here, very gritty, is going to dig down deep, and is able to battle back, gain the lead, and to win this race by half a length. And I think him being able to kind of take that pressure and dig it on the rail, to me, that's very impressive, especially with a horse with a number of limited starts, just 3 under his belt. I think looking at his races, he should be pretty close to the front end in here and can make that late move. We see the grit that he's going to need in the Preakness. He has that. Luis Saez, Brad Cox, the connections, always one to watch. I mean, I just think he's been very impressive so far. And looking at his buyers, they've been some big numbers. He's training well coming into this race. So a lot of respect for First Mission in here. That's the field of 8 for the Preakness. And I ended with First Mission. And now we're going to start with him in terms of my top selections. I do use him on top in here. I think he's versatile, but I still think he's going to get a good trip in here. I've been visually impressed with him, and I just really liked what we saw from him in the Lexington. Now, he is going to have to step up. He's going to face some horses that have been in Grade 1s. He's going to have to face Mage. Everything's going to have to go right for him, but I do think the talent is there. And I mentioned Mage. He's hard to knock. I mean, he's done pretty much everything asked of him in his career. He's been able to stretch out in each start. He was tremendous in the Kentucky Derby. Very, very huge performance from him. 105 buyer speed figure. I mean, I can certainly see why a lot of people are going to use him on top in here. And other horses, though, they've had a little bit more time off. That is the part of the Triple Crown that makes this, series so exciting, is the spacing between the races. So he's coming off a 2 weeks rest, but he seems to be training well, and everything that we've, you can see and follow says that all systems are a go for Mage this Saturday. The one National Treasure I mentioned, I think he's part of the pace scenario. I think he's good enough to hang around for a share in here. He's got the benefit of the inside draw. And then rounding out my selections, the number 7, Blazing Sevens. I still think we haven't seen his best. I think his connections are waiting for that, and they've chose his races very strategically, and I think he's going to run pretty well in the Preakness on Saturday. But for me, I'm going to try to beat Mage with the number 8, First Mission. Good luck and enjoy watching the Preakness.